Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I am Tyler, and it's exciting times. We're starting Battle the Labyrinth, chapters 1 through 10, first half. Rick Riordan, all that good stuff. Um, lot of notes, a lot more notes than the last time. I have like twice as many notes. There's a lot that they introduce in this part. Um, and I think that might have to do with this just being like the second to last book. Again, there's more books. We've already talked about that. There are more. There is more that's being made after the fact. But like the original, what I stand by, the original series was, books 1 through 5. And so this is like the second to last one of like this arc. And so that's my theory as to why they just introduce so many things, so many characters, and not only introduce but also uh, like brought back some things as well, some ideas that you're like, oh, that was a really nice thing about I think last book where we realized that Hades actually didn't break the oath by having Bianca and Nico because actually they were born like 70 years ago, but they got caught in the casino, the same casino that caught Percy and them, right? So it's just nice to see, like, there's even more of those touches in this book so far where it's like, hey, remember that thing? May have been big, may have just been a throwaway comment, but it does come back around in this book. So it is more of like, it's just nice for like world building and to be like, especially with the casino. It's like, oh, this is just something that like Percy and them got caught by. Like this is known to take probably a lot of half-bloods. So that was cool. But a lot of stuff. So let's start with the end as we always do. Sort of ends. To be honest, this part doesn't really have like a good ending. It's not bad, but it's not a very good cliffhanger, I don't think. But it does end with Annabeth being like, "Hey Sphinx, your riddles are terrible," and I knew she was gonna do it. Not only because I've read the book before, but I don't remember that. But I just knew she was gonna do it because those aren't like I was thinking the same thing. Those aren't riddles; they're just questions. Asking what the capital Bulgaria is. That's not a riddle. That's just like that's like Jeopardy, right? Like Jeopardy isn't really riddles. I would argue Jeopardy is actually more riddle-like than the Sphinx's question, because at least with Jeopardy, they give you the answer and you think of the question, which is kind of a little twisted. So at least there's like a little bit extra, instead of just like trivia night, which is basically what this Sphinx was doing. They weren't riddles. Um, and I understand the Sphinx being like, "Oh, you already knew the answer to that one." I was like, okay, fair, but just think of another riddle, you know? Like you just being like, "Oh, what was one of them? What's the square root of 16?" It's like that's not a riddle. That's just like facts, you know. So I get it. And with her being the daughter of Athena, I mean, again, she even says it right where she's like, um, this is like, oh, what was that word she said? I don't know. It's like an insult to her intelligence. Whereas like she was getting up, she was nervous, but she was probably excited too to be like, okay, we're gonna get, even if it wasn't the same riddle, she's like, oh, I want to like think about this and figure it out. And now she's just like, nah, this is awful. If she was smarter, very smart, by the way, but if she was just a little smarter and a little less prideful, I think she would have just answered them so they could have left because she was nailing these questions. So that was cool. Again, it kind of ended that way. We're still in the labyrinth. We'll talk about like prediction stuff later, but that's kind of how it ends. It's cool. Um, but there's so much. So that's obviously the ending. What leads to that is we do have uh, you. It's probably pronounced Euridian. That's probably what it is. When I first read it, I was like Eurishan, but I don't really think shun is a sound that happens a lot in Greek. I don't really think that though. Euridian just sounds more like ancient Greek. So he gave Annabeth the like fingerprint necklace or whatever to find Hephaestus. That's cool. They're finally there because that ranch, which we'll talk about in a second, that ranch was not Hephaestus's ranch. That was not the right one that they needed to go to. Even though going there, I guess, did kind of, there were some positives that that we'll talk about. But so that was cool. Very convenient, but that is where they have to go. It was funny that it turned into a spider because Annabeth doesn't like spiders. The whole like rivalry and stuff. But so that was cool. We got the fingerprint necklace. Get to Hephaestus. I don't really know because like what was the whole point there, right? Like Hephaestus admired Daedalus, and so it was, and so Hera was like, oh, if you go to Hephaestus, so he's your best shot. I assume Hephaestus will help, especially given the fact that Hephaestus, like, he's like under Poseidon, right? So I imagine that'll be nice there. Hopefully he's super helpful, and he tells them, maybe he knows exactly where Daedalus is, because that is their, that's their end goal, right? So that was pretty cool. Speaking of that, I guess we'll just carry on to the Hera stuff. It is always bad news, right? I remember reading that line in there too, where as soon as Hera came, I was thinking the same thing that Percy said, which is like, it's never a good thing when a god wants to help you out, because it's never just out of the goodness of their heart. There's always some underlying reason. As of right now, I'm not really sure what it is, but Hera didn't even really help at all, right? Like, she said, go to Hephaestus. Okay, that's helpful, I suppose. We still have to know how to get there. And we got really lucky by getting someone who was owed a favor to Hephaestus. But then even her being like, oh, Percy already knows how to get out. That's interesting. Because one, doesn't help. Doesn't help in the slightest. Because Percy has no idea what she's talking about. And so it's like, okay, I asked you a question. I wish for something. And she's like, oh, you already know the answer. Look deep inside yourself. It's like, that is not an answer. That is not fair. You just genied me. I can't, the genie's like, I can't give you something you already have. So you wasted a wish. It's like, So again, not very helpful. But moving on to the whole Percy thing. If I remember correctly, and I didn't make a note of it because, I don't know, I guess I just thought it wasn't going to be important. Right? Yeah, I forget who it was. He had a dream. Because a lot of really cryptic things happen in Half-Blood dreams, especially Percy, right? I'm trying to think of who it was. I want to say it was Hercules, maybe, just because Hercules is a safe bet. We're talking about like quests and stuff, like very memorable quests. There was a dream I think that Percy had, and it was basically Hercules explaining that was like Adrian or whatever. I forget what it is. Adriadne's string, right? That's the whole thing. Like, oh, we gotta get it. You gotta get it before Luke, because it helps us, navigate the labyrinth. But then the dude Hercules, which I think was Hercules, was actually like, oh well, this was a super minor like component to me escaping. It was actually, and I think he named like a woman, which might have been who he loved, which makes me think that it's like love helps you navigate the labyrinth, maybe. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting, I guess. It seems very close to the whole like power of friendship thing. And that kind of splinters off into two things, right? Where one, we're getting these other dreams from Percy about Daedalus. We got one about him loving his son, Icarus, and the tragedy that happened with him. And then we have him killing his nephew, Perdix. And so that's like, does the love thing play into that somehow? With like, oh, he continued building this in memory of Icarus and whatever. I don't know. It seems like a reach. And then the other splinter was her being like, "Oh well, Percy knows." And with the whole relationship sort of thing that's swirling between Percy and Annabeth, not really sure what to call it. Um, that would make sense to have like a connection there, and then this finally be the time where some feelings get realized. Maybe, I don't know. It all seems very loose, so I'm not sure that that's exactly what it is. But that's the only thing I could think of. So we'll see. We'll see how they navigate out of it. You know, obviously, Hephaestus, once they reach him, which I'm sure they will, that'll be a huge help. And to my knowledge, from what I remember from the very end of this book, it seems like Luke has the string already. Like the way he talked about it, because he was going to give it to uh, Campe, the like dragon woman. So it sounds like he already has the string. And also the way they're talking, they're like, "We're gearing up, we're ready, we're about to lead the charge," you know. And so I'm like, is this something, Percy? I understand some of your dreams you don't want to share, but like this one, you gonna tell somebody? You gonna because again, it sounds like Luke already has the string, which hurts them. Now, if that's true, they really need to figure out. Percy really needs to rack his brain and figure out what Hera was talking about. Because if they can't get out of here, it doesn't even. Well, maybe it does. Because I guess if they find Daedalus can most likely help them out. But I feel like again, the dream that I'm partially remembering, and Hera pointedly mentioning it, I think they're gonna have to figure out a way. And it's not just gonna be as easy as the Dallas being like, "Oh yeah, here's a map," that seems too easy. So we will see. Um, what else do we have? There's a lot of ways to go with this. Geez, I guess we'll talk about Luke for a second. Because there's a couple Chronos things. Maybe then we'll get into some of the suspicious acts that have been happening. So, Chronos, I believe, says something to the effect to Luke of, "You are now beyond harm." Basically referencing how he saved Luke, it seems, because Luke should have died. Luke should have been flattened by those rocks that he fell off a mountain, basically. So to me, I'm interpreting that as like Kronos has given him power. I don't know exactly how or like to what extent, but Kronos has somehow given Luke power, um, to the point again like beyond harm. So does that mean that like Luke wins? you know, before it was like, okay, he's a really good swordsman. Probably not gonna be able to, Percy probably not gonna be able to beat him, right? Even though Percy's pretty good, it's like Kronos got buffed me, can't lose now. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Like, can he not die? Can he just not be hurt? Like in battle? Like, does he have some weird powers that we haven't quite seen yet? Because there hasn't been a time and place for it. Just wanted to mention that so that everyone keeps an eye out. Because there are a few things, especially towards the end. Like once they get in the labyrinth, I feel like it's very easy for us to fully just delve into the labyrinth and forget everything that happened pre-labyrinth in the book, like the first, like 3 chapters or so. But there are some like nuggets of, I was gonna say wisdom. That's not true. Like maybe foreshadowing, maybe. Along with that, we have again some suspicious acts, right? Hold on. There's something more about Percy, or about Kronos. Kronos does seem like he's ready to lead the army. I think he pretty much says it, right? Where he's like, "I'm gonna lead it myself. Let's go." That is concerning. Again, mixing what I said before about the whole string thing, and the way Luke was talking about the camp and like some tough things he's gonna have to do. It seems like they're ready, which is not good, because Percy and the camp not ready at all. Although the solstice is coming up, right? Is it one of the solstice? I feel like everything big always happens on a solstice. Um, but then on top of that, with Kronos, Chiron brings up this idea of there may be another reason why they want Daedalus. They might not just want easy like travel to different places, mainly including Camp Half Blood and maybe Olympus. I don't know if the Labyrinth can get to Mount Olympus, but also the Dallas being the like inventor, whatever that he is, uh, he may be able to build Kronos a new body. Um, that seemed like a reach, but I feel like it's even more confirmed, or at least Kronos has definitely had this idea because he seems like he's like 10 steps ahead of everybody. Because then we recently, in like the last couple chapters, like 9 or 10 or whatever, we do see him. When he kills Perdix, he's brought ideas from him, being like, hey, we make like these uh, you know magnificent metal creations of different animals. Why can't we do it with humans? And Daedalus is like, no, you're an idiot. This is fire that you don't want to play with, right? And he brings him like a whole scroll or whatever, and he's like, oh, it couldn't work. If when you're older, you'll realize it or whatever. But like that is a little bit of a seed, and you connect that back to what Chiron said before, where again we're pre-labyrinth, so it's very easy to forget this. But maybe now seems way more possible, way more likely that this is a kind of side plan for Kronos. It doesn't seem like this is something that Kronos needs, but it does seem like this will, if he is able to get Daedalus to build him a new body, it will possibly, maybe quicken the pace of him being tangible again and being able to, be in full force. It seems like he's going to get there anyway, but this might be a way for him to get there a lot faster. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens again. I'd like to believe. Okay, they're gonna get to Hephaestus. It's gonna happen, right? I can't see it not happening. They're gonna find Daedalus. It has to happen. Um, I think it'd be like a weird ending. Like, oh no, Daedalus isn't here. No one's ever seen him. So I feel like they're gonna find him. I would like to believe that he will go on their side, right? But I don't know because then again, he may also feel wronged by the gods. I feel like it's very easy for half bloods to feel wronged by the gods, right? We've seen that a million times already in the book. Daedalus is mortal, right? That's confirmed. So he does reference Athena as his mom, which makes a lot of sense. So I'm like, maybe he has a grudge. Maybe again another half blood with a grudge against their parent. Maybe it won't be so easy to convince him. Um, that's scary, scary stuff. Again, continuing with the suspicious acts, Quintus. Don't trust Quintus for a second. There's a few reasons why. A couple of reasons. One, he gave, I guess chronologically, well, generally, he seems suspicious, right? Like even when he was at camp, it was like, oh, he's like an older half, but that's weird to see. Great, right? To see a half blood who was alive and didn't die as a child, but it's like I don't know, he's like a weird energy, and now him dealing with Gurion, getting those the scorpions from him. Obviously, Gurion is dealing with anybody, right? Like he's like, I don't care, I'll do business with Kronos. That like sheds some weird light on him. Now it looks a lot weirder too for like 3 of the 6 scorpions found Percy. Like that's crazy. Like there's a whole forest and they even mentioned it, but now it looks kind of very suspicious. Juniper was like, I don't trust him. He was skulking around the entrance to the labyrinth. I don't trust him. And Juniper, I feel like we have no reason not to trust her. Her coming out as like a double agent would be insane. But I have no reason to believe that. And then Quintus giving Percy the present of the dog whistle. Never trust someone who gives you a present. It just never ends well, right? You know, the first one with Luke with the shoes were gonna drag Percy down to Tartarus. Terrible, right? Ares gave him the backpack, which had the lightning bolt in it. Terrible, right? I'm trying to think of anyone who's given Percy a gift that wasn't, I mean, Tyson, right? you know, um, so again, it's just very, very hard to believe someone is genuinely giving, and especially, I'll say something like more magical because even Tyson built it, whereas uh, Luke's thing was magic shoes, Ares' thing was a magic backpack. So I feel like when it's like more special, more mystical, don't trust it. And that's exactly what happened with Quintus, right? Quintus gave him a magic ice dog whistle, and it only works once or whatever. And so to me, I'm just like, don't use it. I'm okay. I'm wrong. The one time it worked out was Hermes. Hermes gave Percy, a bunch of regular stuff for their travels, but also did give him um, a like canister of wind, which was helpful in them escaping the cruise ship, and then also those vitamins, which helped them become human again. So he was genuine, but again, it's not a good track record. Um, Again, the fact that the dog whistle exists, I can't imagine. I would respect it if Rick Riordan wrote this and wrote that moment, giving him the dog whistle, and Percy just never uses it. Because now that it exists, and now that again the whole thing of like, don't trust gifts. It is just something in like the back of your mind, and for that to kind of weigh on you, be like, when is he gonna use it? He's gonna use it in the worst moment, and it's gonna cause him so much trouble. Either the dog will come and just attack them, or nothing will happen, and that'll be like, they'll like incorporate that into their plan. They'll be like, ooh, we're gonna use the whistle here, and then it doesn't work, and everything falls apart. And then when we find out he never uses it, that'll be bold, a very bold writing decision. But I just can't see that. Like he's gonna use it, and I just can't see it going well. Again, at the end of the day, Quintus could be fine, but like even Chiron was like, yeah, I don't really trust him either. But it's good to have him close so I can watch him. So it's like Chiron doesn't trust him. I don't trust him either. He does have that thing on his neck, which we're not really sure what it is. It's like a brand or something. Again, I feel like he's been in here before. I'm now starting to have my own theories about like, because didn't, oh, what was it? What was it? Didn't, didn't like, someone else had like something on their neck that we saw, and I think one of Percy's dreams. In my mind, I was like, is that connected? Not necessarily is that Quintus, but is it the same thing that happened to that person? Did that also happen to Quintus? So it's very hard to trust him. But we will see. We will see. Knocking out some notes. Let's get into Nico for a second. A small way to start with Nico is Percy still hasn't told Chiron about him being Hades' son. I wouldn't be surprised if Chiron has his suspicions, or even if he just knows, because Chiron is Chiron, and I feel like he could figure these things out. He's been around for hundreds of years. You assume, but I just keep going back to that. I'm like, man, what if, because we're gonna talk about Nico in a second, but like, what if Percy just came out and told him, whether it be that day that Nico ran away, or even if it was the day that they left for the quest, and he was like, hey, I've been keeping this from you because, I mean, again, he could have given his reason. He very easily could have been like, hey, listen, I kept it from you because at the time Nico was just a kid. He was the son of Hades, and I didn't know what was going to happen to him. He doesn't deserve any of this. His sister is, dead. Now he's alone, and now he's a son. He has to deal with being a son of Hades, like, and then him even, you know, Percy even being like, I'm gonna take the prophecy. Thalia doesn't have it anymore. Nico, I'm not gonna let him have it. I can't put that on his shoulders. So I'm gonna, so like he could explain it in a way and be like, but listen, we're now at a point. I'm seeing these Iris messages because at that point he already saw a couple. Something is happening, and I would feel bad if you didn't know. But I guess we're just not there. um, because of that, we get a couple of very interesting things that happened with Nico and Bianca. So Bianca, that's the wrong note. Do 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 do. Oh, I guess there's only one. Yeah, there's only one. Bianca does come back, and there's lots of things that we can kind of deduce from this, right? So Bianca comes out and she's like, Nico, you gotta stop. You gotta stop trying to have this grudge, trying to get revenge on Percy. It's not his fault. Nico doesn't want to hear any of it, right? Like he, at this point he's in too deep, right? And in his mind, he has to blame Percy, or else everything he's done, worthless, right? As well as him just feeling the way he does, him losing his sister, right? Like that's the only person he ever had. Now he has nobody essentially, even though that's not true. I mean, family, sure, but like he's part of Camp Half Blood. Like everyone would accept him. You would hope, just like any other, right? Yeah, it's tough. I like that Bianca came out for this and like she was able to shed some light on this and kind of put it to bed and find, because like up to this point Nico, very frustrating character. Like every time he sees Percy he's like, you killed my sister, like every time, and it's like you just refuse. And again, grief does things to people, sure, but like you just refuse to understand the facts and what actually happened. Him being like, you let my sister die, and then him turning that into, you want to kill me. It's like, what? No, Percy. There's no reason Percy wants to kill Nico. Like, but again, he's just spiraling, right? And then also the ghost, which we find out is like previous king Nemo, is like kind of whispering in his ear about certain things, which is, I'm sure, not helping his paranoia, right? I'm sure that king will come back at some point and be a much greater thing, because him sticking with Nico, him sort of like whispering poison in his ear, he has to have some sort of goal, right? Like maybe he's already working with Kronos. Maybe Kronos kind of enlisted him and promised him something. Maybe promised him a body and to be physical again and to like live again, basically. Because Nemo could be the one to kind of like pull him into Kronos' camp. So maybe that's kind of the play here. We'll see that. But after all that, we see that Nico is not coming with them in the labyrinth. He kind of stays at Gurion's. It was his like ranch. We'll definitely see him again. I can't imagine we'll never see Nico again. But I hope he makes the right decision, because we know Nemo is gonna try to come back and be like, oh, he's gonna make up some nonsense of like, oh, that wasn't really Bianca, or they somehow like altered the word, or like he's gonna come up with something. I hope that Nico doesn't side with him, be like, yeah, you're right, Percy, you know what, even if Bianca said this, she's just trying to be nice, because that's the kind of person she is. I know Percy's guilty. Like I could totally see him doing that. I hope he doesn't. But I don't know, we'll see. What else do we got? I guess some smaller stuff that I just kind of want to mention. Yeah, it's pretty much all like smaller stuff that I want to mention. So, we have Briaris. He's a 100 hand man or something. I'm not really sure where he ends up at the end. I think he doesn't come back in the labyrinth with them, I believe. I don't think he dies, but he doesn't come back in the labyrinth with them. But that was an interesting thing to see Tyson look so, look up to him so much, and also us also kind of reintroduce the idea of what immortality actually is, and the fact that, well, it doesn't really mean that you live forever. There is a way for you to kind of just like disappear, and that's scary, right? I like that they kind of brought this back up to us, that way we can remember it and it can be in the back of our minds, because I feel like they wouldn't mention that if it doesn't come back around at some point, right? I don't know. Um, we'll see. But yeah, that was kind of interesting characters. It's always cool when we see just new characters, right? New parts of Greek mythology and all that. So it's cool to see him. It does also kind of accentuate the direness of the situation, right? Where it's like, this is bad. Like, this war that's gonna happen is bad, and all the monsters and the gods and the demigods, or whatever, maybe not demigods, but all those people that were involved in the old war, they know how bad it was, and they know how probably how many lives were lost, how much of a struggle everything was. And so now that it's happening again, and a lot of them feel, they don't feel very hopeful. They're looking at everything and they're like, this isn't looking good for us. Kronos is back with a vengeance, and it seems like he's actually going to win this time. Because we have people like Briara saying these things, right? One of the people that helped very, very much defeat Kronos the first time. I think they're having second thoughts and being like, we can't do this again. Maybe it's because we're weaker than we used to be, as well as, they feel like maybe Zeus and the gods got lucky the first time they were able to trick Kronos. It can't happen again. So, again, setting the atmosphere, I think, for a lot of things. Another small thing, we have Gurion say that someone paid for safe passage for Percy and the crew. I'm not sure who that is. They don't ever actually say it. Obviously, there's theories, right? Like, you could say it was some good people, like Chiron or something, but that just seems too easy and like weird. I don't know why. And then you go to, oh, maybe, what if it was like Luke or something? Like Luke paid for safe passage to maybe keep them in the labyrinth longer, because he knows the position he's in. Again, we talked about it before, where it's like, he's ready. He has everything he needs. So if he keeps Percy and Annabeth, like, and even Grover and Tyson, like these people who can definitely sway a battle, no matter how confident he is, it'd be nice to not have Percy or Annabeth or anyone, there at Camp Half Blood when he storms it. It'd be easier for him, right? Both on a physical way, because Percy and Annabeth, even Tyson and Grover, they all have their strengths, they all have their ways that they can turn the tide, but also Annabeth specifically, to be like, he doesn't want to fight, or definitely not kill Annabeth. He really doesn't want to do that. The same way that Annabeth doesn't want to. They have that bond that it's gonna be interesting, because I feel like at some point they have to break it. Like, they're going to be put in a position where they have to fight each other, or Annabeth has to choose or something, and between like Percy and Luke or whatever, or not even Percy and Luke, just like she's gonna have to decide, like, in a moment, to save her friends or to save Luke. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. But anyway, I just don't know who else it would be. Like, it could be a god, like it could be Poseidon or something, being like, "Hey, let him through. I'll pay you," or something. That is a pretty indirect way for a god to, because again, they're not really allowed to meddle too much in Half-Blood quests. So that would be, kind of like a small slick way to be like, "Yeah, let me just help him a little bit." I'm sure at some point we will figure it out, because there's someone out there that wants them to succeed. Why? You know, if it's someone on the opposite side, that's even more satisfying. Um, um, Another small thing, I do like the moment where Percy goes to the Naiad, and seems like if he wanted to, he could have just kind of like pushed her around and been like, "No, I'm using this river to clean the stables. I'm doing it." And I, if it did get physical, Percy probably would have won, just because he's the son of Poseidon. I feel like if he like mustered up his strength, he could have overpowered her. But I like that he didn't. I like that he thought about it. Well, didn't really think about doing it, but thought about the the idea of doing it. I guess he was kind of like one more step removed, um, because it just shows how different he is. I feel like there is this long running um, trope among the gods that heroes are selfish and heroes will do whatever they have to do for their own needs and their own goals. Even Mr. D came out last book and was like, I don't trust heroes. You're all the same, right? Um, and I feel like Percy, being our main character, he is really trying his hardest and kind of showcasing it time and time again that he's not like other heroes, or at the very least, maybe not all heroes are as bad as they are painted to be by the gods. Because again, like this is a very small moment, but he even takes that into account where this naiad is going to know from here on out that, oh, there is, you know, even though again I'm pretty sure it was Hercules, even though Hercules did this like 1,000 years ago or whatever it was, and kind of took advantage of the situation, not all heroes are bad, because this other one came out and he probably could have very easily done the same thing, but he decided not to. You know, it's like right there, just one person at a time. Percy is trying to not be like all the heroes before him necessarily, and I don't know. I don't know. I guess he's just more aware of his reputation and like not wanting to do things how people have done them before, um, because it seems like a lot of people sort of mess it up, you know. And so now he's able to be like, no, you know what? I'm not gonna afford it. That doesn't seem right. It seems like he has more kind of morals than a lot of the previous heroes, or even the gods, right? And it seems to help him time and time again. It seems to, there's a possibility that this Naiad is going to help him, sometime later in this book. Um, so I like that. And speaking of which, kind of in the same vein, when he is fighting Gurion, he drops his sword, picks up a bow and arrow, fires it, and is able to somehow hit all three hearts sequentially and, quote unquote, kill Gurion, right? Doesn't make any sense at the time, or just at face value, because he is a terrible, terrible at archery. But he does pray to both Artemis and Apollo. He later gives them offerings, and it seems like maybe that worked, or that pleased them. And so that right there is just another moment of like him trying to trust and believe in the friends, or maybe just the acquaintances, that he's made along the way, where he did good by Artemis. He did good by Apollo. I mean, he didn't. There's really a lot of involvement with Apollo, but you know, probably in tandem with what he did with Artemis, Apollo being the brother, like that helps. So them having possibly this fondness for Percy because of what what Percy did and like how he acted and all that stuff. It is good karma basically, and so he was able to get help from them. Again, just another way that Percy is showing this, where he can be nice. He doesn't have to throw his weight around. He doesn't have to be manipulative. Again, him being in this war, kind of entrenched right in the middle of this war between the Titans and the gods. Um, the Titans being on the opposite side, but also just the gods in general as well. Like them both feeling more powerful than anything, which they are, but them using that to their advantage and being selfish and again manipulating the heroes. And this all comes back to a theme I think that's happened in almost every book, where it's like the half-bloods inherently are good, and I think they do side with the gods in this, right? Like more so than the Titans, but they don't always agree with the gods, and they won't always just do whatever the gods say, and won't always follow their lead. They'll be like, no, that is not the right way to do things. And so again, coming back to this moment with Artemis and with him praying to Artemis and Apollo, that worked out for him. Him being nice and him being helpful and him truly caring. Especially with Artemis and her hunters, with like Bianca and Zoe and all that. Like he truly cared, and he was able to get some respect from them, which is even crazier for him, specifically for being a male, in the eyes of with Artemis and the hunters and their whole outlook on that. It's like again that just goes to show that his way is working, which I think is good. Then I guess the final thing is Annabeth and her choice. We don't know what this is yet. I'm sure we all have guesses as to what it could be. I want to think, because my mind immediately goes to, I kind of mentioned it before, Percy and Luke, right? Like I could see there being, because it feels like she is torn up about that. Like right now in this moment, she has feelings for Percy, it feels like. And on top of that, just, in general for like her friends and like Camp Half-Blood and all that, Luke unfortunately is on the opposite side of that. And she can't completely cut off her feelings for Luke. I don't think it's at a point where it's like any, like romantic feelings or anything, but there's still an admiration there, as well as a bond. She met Luke before anyone, before Grover, before Chiron, before Percy, right? Like she knew Luke. And they went on a very long and very dangerous path, together to get from, I think, Pennsylvania to Camp Half-Blood. So it's like there's just a bond there that's very hard to sever, even though you can very clearly see time and time again Luke doing bad things and trying to harm her friends and trying to, again, siding with Kronos, which is something Annabeth will not do. I can't see that ever happening. But even through all of that, it's still like, oh, but Luke though, like she still has that wish that Luke will come around, and we see, this is, there is some reciprocating feelings there, because even when Annabeth was holding the boulder, and even after when she was like, completely exhausted, right? Like he didn't want to kill her. He was like, oh, but we can still use her though, so even then when we saw Luke at the end in the dream, you can tell that he has some tough decisions he has to make, and I think one of them is definitely Annabeth. Like there's going to be a time, it's going to happen, where he's going to have to face off against Annabeth. Can he do what needs to be done? I don't know. Can Annabeth do what needs to be done? I don't know. So that immediately is where my mind goes when it comes to a choice. It's not necessarily as black and white as Percy or Luke, but I think there is some resolution, some like internal resolution that needs to happen with her and her feelings, and like how, I don't know, I guess how she feels and how she thinks about everything. Other than that, I'm trying to push that aside. I'm not really sure what what the choice could be. Again, we've already had some tough things where it's like she was thinking about being a hunter. It's like, yeah, I don't really think that's here anymore. Even like, does she want to live with her dad in San Francisco? Like those, well, I think are very important. I don't think the hunter thing is even a possibility in her mind anymore. She's like, I'm off that. And then even the San Francisco thing, I don't think that's like a large enough decision for like Janice to be like, you have a choice to make. And then for Hera to be like, I have pushed back the choice, but you will still have to make one. Like how big this seems to be for her. It doesn't really match the whole like, oh, we're gonna live in San Francisco. So I don't know. I don't know. Very tough. Very, very tough. So we'll see. Let's just hear what y'all think about like what her choice could be. Because again, I've read this book before. I don't remember. I'm trying to rack my brain, but I really don't remember what it could be. So we'll see. And that is it. That is everything. Again, little bit longer. A lot of stuff to cover with this one, and I would guess that the second half it would be big as well. So, um, any predictions? I'm not really sure. I mean, it is the whole second half of the book, so we are going to get a resolution. I mean, again, they're definitely gonna find Hephaestus. He's gonna probably guide them to Daedalus, tell them where to go. I don't know that anything exciting will happen there. Maybe he'll have some like new weapons or tools for them to bring, which would be kind of cool to help them maybe get a leg up when it comes to going into the labyrinth, because they really haven't faced any like monsters yet. I mean, they faced the Camp A, but even that wasn't I wasn't really in the labyrinth. That was at the entrance. That was they didn't really fit. I mean, even the Sphinx, like they kind of did, but I don't really think that counts a whole lot. So I think that's something that's have to do. Like they have to face some sort of like monster where it's like, oh, this is bad. Um, I think they're definitely gonna find Daedalus. I just don't know how much he's gonna help them. Um, Other than that, like I'm sure they'll run into Luke at some point. I feel like it wouldn't be a book in the series if they didn't run into Luke. Um, yeah, that's it, I guess. And hopefully we do. I feel like we have to get some more information as to what this choice is, as well as what the rest of the prophecy is, because she still hasn't said that. Um, so yeah, that is it. Next time we're gonna finish the book, which is chapters 11 through 20. And after that, it's gonna be great. We're gonna final book in the series as I see it. Maybe in the future we'll do more, but first five books are like the main series, so we'll do that. And yeah, that is it. Let me know any of your predictions, and until next time, read the chapters, and yeah, can't wait. Can't wait to finish it.